Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you are. Very, very happy to be here today and introduce Rejane Planer, who's here with me today. She'll be speaking to you all the way from Austria. As you know, I'm here in Nashville, Tennessee, in the US. Rejane's talk will focus on the mysteries of the universe, and it's part of our series, Seeds of Knowledge. Good morning, Rejane. Hope you're doing well. And for those who do not know Rejane yet, let me formally introduce her to you. Rejane Planer is a co-founder and vice chair of the Association for Spiritist Studies Allan Kardec. Rejane has lived and worked in Austria since 1989. She's a writer and a poet. She has contributed to many articles to several Brazilian spirit magazines. And professionally, Rejane is an electrical and nuclear engineer. She holds a master's degree in nuclear engineering from the Military Engineering Institute from Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. Rejane, I'm so glad to have you here with you. And I'm going to ask you to go ahead and start your talk. Thank you so much.
Yeah, good morning, or for us here in Austria, it's good afternoon. Thank you, Marcia, for giving me the opportunity to share some thoughts with you and with your audience. I'm really glad for the opportunity. Thank you. I live in Austria for around 30 years. I've worked in one of the United Nations organizations in Vienna. And I say that because my English is still with a lot of accent. I have a hard accent. I've never lived in an English country. Means we used to say here that we speak the UN English. Then apologize for those who are listening and expect something different. But I think I do communicate what I think very well in English, and I hope you follow me. This talk is not something very simple. We are talking about the mysteries of the universe. We've been talking about that since 2016, 2015, and in particular, this lecture is based on a paper I wrote in the Spiritist magazine Presença Espírita in 2017, and it's basically also the same I delivered in 2021 at the US Spiritist Federation. Why it came to my head the idea of talking about the mysteries of the universe? I think we are faced in our everyday life with those mysteries. There are questions that we make to ourselves that we cannot answer. For one side, our life is really driven by this progressive and irrevocable flow of time. We cannot stop time. Years pass by quite quickly, and we don't perceive. As I said, I've been here already 30 years, and it seems for me that I arrived in Vienna the day before yesterday. In many occasions, this flow of time is perceived as very slow, in others, perceived as very fast. Because time flows and life flows with time, and we don't understand what time is, in fact. Many people live in a kind of cage. They are driven by tangible things in this fragile reality that we are. And I mean fragile reality because look around you. We are confronted with war. We are driven by politicians. We try to live our lives as best as we can, taking care of ourselves, our families, our beloved ones. But many times we are driven by the world. And even those that don't want to be driven by the world, we cannot stop, because we live in this environment. And if our society offers a lot of pleasures, society not always provides for all those pleasures. This brings a lot of anxiety and frustration in people. On another side, media and the social networks contribute to form social and cultural habits that prevent the individual to look to other life realities. Many and most of people living in this earth are still driven by the material needs, by survival. We are not primitive beings, in the sense that we live in a civilized world. However, many of us live as primitive beings, only driven by survival. Those cannot see another reality. They are like Marlowe, the famous psychologist, said, the first need is survival, then it comes other things. But those that can look beyond the material needs and the material life, we look at the universe, we look up to the stars, and we find ourselves immersed in many mysteries, in an ocean of mysteries. What is the universe? Where do I come from? Where am I going to? What am I doing here? Why am I talking to you? What drives me to do that? Many thinkers and philosophers have reflected upon those questions, not why I'm talking to you, but the purpose of life and the beginning of life and the end of life. Those questions are key questions for any civilized human being in this planet, but many don't question themselves about that. And most of those questions have been the subject of thinking of philosophers and scientists, especially in our time. They are very interrelated with science. By uncovering the reality of the spiritual life and soul immortality, we believe that Spiritism opens doors for the understanding of those life mysteries. And then it motivates people to change the patterns of thought and behavior, of course, so that we can reach higher levels of understanding and higher levels in our evolutionary journey. We cannot stop time, but we can go within and try to grasp this time and try to grasp the meaning of life if we cannot unveil the mysteries of the universe. Of course, every one of us thinks and reflects upon according to our beliefs, our notions of the physical reality, and we see what is the only possible reality. Everyone sees its own reality. However, There are other realities, no? Have you already think that what you think as real might not be what I think as real? I think we needed to understand that mind is still a question mark, and consciousness is one of the mysteries in this world. There are still much to be uncovered. All those questions that I project now here, and I mentioned before, the biggest questions, it's not maybe where am I going, or where I come from, but it's what is life and what is its purpose. But we look for the answers for all those questions. Why am I here? And I believe science and spiritism can be looked at together and can profit from one another. I believe that whatever material, physical phenomena that we see in our world can or could or will be explained by science. I'm a very rational being. However, I'm also deeply aware that there are many questions that science does give an answer, that philosophy does give a proper answer for me, but I could find answers in the Spiritism doctrine. For instance, what is God? It's not this being that the Bible talks about, a being that looks like a human being because it has emotions, it brings pain to the world, it does bring much love, but it also is someone that is aggressive because it has so many in this view of God, there are so many failures, so many weaknesses. I mean, this is not the God that I perceive. And I think one of the biggest scientists, biggest minds from our time, Albert Einstein, has also discovered that this is not the God that we are looking for. God is love. And Kardec looked for this God in one of the first questions in the Spiritism, in the book of the Spirits. What is God? It's not a human being. The other question is the origin of life. As a spirit, where do we come from? Are we only the material body? I believe we are not. I'm sure we are not. Is there a spiritual life? So many evidences we have from the spiritual life. The cycle of life, this beginning, the birth and death, and again the birth and death. That means this cycle of incarnation, reincarnation, that bring us to higher levels in our evolution is also answered by and proposed in the Spiritist book. And of course, the sovereign laws of the universe. Because if we live in God's universe, this universe reflects God's mind and is full of harmony. And harmony is only achieved through love. Then the sovereign laws of the universe are based in love. And those 5 points are the main points of this philosophy that has a scientific background and has also a religious point of view or charity, Spiritism. If I think I talk about what is God, and the origin of life that science is looking for, and we could look for the origin of life in the earth, or we can look for the origin of life in the universe, and we can look for the origin of life as a soul, as a spirit who will incarnate in this planet or in any other dimension. And this is the approach that we take here. And is the approach that Kardec in the 19th century took also. We live, as it is written in one of his books, in an eternal and unchangeable universe, the Milky Way. The Milky Way is our galaxy, but the universe is much bigger than the Milky Way. Today, we know, sorry, I mix up the things here. In Kardec's time, they believe that we live in an eternal and unchangeable universe, the Milky Way. And we know now that we live in the Milky Way, but that is not our universe. Today, we know that we live in a dynamic universe with maybe thousands of galaxies. And we know that the observable universe is 13.7 billion years old. Interesting that in the 19th century, when the scientific knowledge said that we live in an eternal and unchangeable universe, Kardec proposed in the Genesis that the universe is dynamic and that time and space are dynamic entities, let's say, elements. Then Kardec was very didactical, very rational. He was one of the scientists of his time, pedagogue, scientist, professor, teacher, whatever you want to call him. He was a rational man. That means when he writes the Spirit's book, he deals with the essential questions of life, and he also clarifies the general elements of the universe, the origin of life, the origin of ourselves, and the origin of the physical world. I used to say that we have cosmology in science looking to the origin of the universe, of the material universe. But we have a spiritual cosmology that looks on the origin of life as consciousness, the origin of the consciousness of the soul, and the origin of the universe. And this is presented in the Genesis by Kardec. Of course, I don't need here to say that Kardec based all his books in a research he did through mediumship with other mediums, because he was not a medium himself, but researching in a very rational and methodic scientific way, to trying to grasp, to understand what is life, what are the answers for those mysteries that we as we put here. Then what it's in the Genesis and in the Spirit's book, and what we believe is that God, with this sovereign wisdom and goodness, creates the primordial elements that give origin to life. I think I'm pushing a bit quick, and I have here a comparison that I apologize, is a comparison of what was science in the time of Kardec and how he came to the conclusions about the origin of life, not based on the science of that time, because most of the principles that he talks about in spirits were just in its beginning, or in science was just beginning to understand what light was. For instance, in geology, that explain the principles of geology were starting in 1830. Kardec writes his books in 1857. Darwin just published The Origin of the Species. That means evolution was not something that was usually taught in science. Until today, we have discussions about that. The periodic table of elements was put by Mendeleev and Maya in 1869. The laws of magnetism by Maxwell in 73. And the electromagnetic waves, that means light, was discovered by Hertz in 1887. I think I put this slide here to give you an idea how the science was and how advanced the thoughts of Kardec were, or the teachings of the spirits to Kardec were. That's better put in this way. When we talk about God, as I've said before, and I think we will have another slide about that. Kardec talks, and the spirits say that we have God creating two principles. Here we have the duality, the material or principle and the intelligent principle. And then we will see how from those two principles derive the life. But interesting is to understand that the spirit that comes from this intelligent principle created by God is an individuality created from this intelligent principle, but ready to develop itself along its evolutionary pathway through many, many different levels of consciousness. That means the spirit is itself a consciousness that at the beginning is sleepy or is latent, and then it starts to awake and develops itself through knowledge, and through knowledge of the laws of nature and the divine laws. One of the concepts that we find also in Kardec is the concept of time and space. And time and space is a concept that was understanding in science. It's understandable only after Einstein theory of relativity. However, if you read the Genesis of Kardec, we'll see similar definition of time and space. Einstein teaches us that time is relative and that we have this space-time that is fundamental for our reality. And in the Genesis written in 1868, you can read there in the page 113 that time is the sequence of things and the space is infinite. And more, it says, we travel always at the same speed of light. Those are concepts that, if you go deeply, they were revealed by Einstein in 1905. The other big theory that is the Big Bang theory that explained the origin of our universe was proposed by Lemaitre in 1927 and retaught in 1948 by Gamow. The Big Bang theory says that our universe is the scientific theory mostly accepted in our days. Of course, there are so many different theories and proposals in cosmology in 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 our time, in those last years, that maybe once they will say that the Big Bang is not the theory that explains the beginning of the universe. But for the time being, it has been proven that is a valid theory. According to this theory, our universe started in an initial state of high density, very, very high density, and high temperature. From this state of high, extremely density and temperature, that means it occurs an expansion that we like a big explosion. This is why it's called Big Bang, but without light. Light and energy, light especially come only much later. At the beginning, there were just particles, elementary particles, but the universe was, like they say, opaque. There was nothing. Nothing is in science is something that I should not say. Sorry, it was opaque. Then around 379,000 years later, it starts the formation of the first atoms that were the first elements in our periodical table, hydrogen and helium. And those, at that time, it started the cosmic background radiation that the scientists Penzias and Wilson detected in 1964, and is one of the evidence that the Big Bang theory can be accepted. Note that only 1.6 million years later, the star and the galaxy start being formed. Then we see that what our science knows started in the 20th century. However, as I've said before, according to the spirits, what Kardec writes there in the Spirit's book, and then provides more information in the Genesis, God creates these two basic fundamental principles where life arises: the intelligent principle and the material principle. From the intelligent principles, God creates the spirit, the consciousness, and from the material principle, matter. And more, what they say is that the universal cosmic fluid that exists and permeates the whole universe derives from this material principle. We still see this duality, matter, consciousness. However, when the consciousness, the spirit, starts developing and going through its evolutionary path, he needs matter to evolve. And because he needs matter, it creates this, what we in our bodily form calls the perispirit, this energy that connects the body, the material, the very material body, with the spirit that we are. And this, and I will also hear a word that many people will not like, but this trinity, body, perispirit, and spirit, are in a sense one thing, because spirit and perispirit are always together in their evolution path till we evolve as a pure spirit. All that are mysteries. How can we explain really deeply that God creates the intelligent principle and the material principle? This is a deep understanding of someone that looks to the stars and try to understand where it comes from, where we come from. And when we look to the stars and we see these billions of stars that that are in the sky, and we see just maybe hundreds or thousands of them, we feel ourselves so small that we need to understand that we live in a divine universe, that we live in a universe permeated by this universal cosmic fluid that gives us life, because from this universal cosmic fluid derives the vital fluid that gives life to every one of us. And and then Kardec defines the spirit as the intelligent principle of the universe. It means I still separate it here, trying in a way, and this is how we get a picture in the internet to represent these three main elements that in fact are one when we are incarnated in this earth: spirit, perispirit, and body. When we leave this dimension and we leave the material body here, what goes with us? Spirit and perispirit, energy. And our bodies are also energy. And this is where we come from. We come from an energy, from a universe that is full of energy. And if before, thousands of years ago, the philosophers said that there is an ether that permeates the universe, that there is no vacuum. Today, the scientists say the same, because quantum theory says that there is no vacuum. There is in the universe always an energy, a kind of background energy, let's say in this way, that if you can understand. And then you see what I'm trying to convey, that when you read the Spirit's books, please read it with your full mind, an open mind, to understand how the spirits are trying to explain those mysteries of the universe for us. Try not to get caught in the cage of this material world, but try to understand also Jesus' words. The gospel is full of wise wisdom, is full of teachings for us to live better in this world and to progress. Means that in this universe where we live, we need to understand that we are energy beings, that we live in the universe, not as individual, but not in individual basis, because we are constantly exchanging energy among ourselves, with the environment and with the universe. And this is not hocus pocus. This is proven by science already. I'm not sure I could bring here all this knowledge for these science topics, but I guess I will not have time. That means I'm focusing some of them only. But in that everything in nature is linked together, from the most primitive atom to the archangel, who incidentally also began existence as an atom, is said in the question 540 of the Spirit's book. And when we look at science and through our philosophers, one of them is Pythagoras. Pythagoras wrote that consciousness sleeps in the stone, dreams in the plant, awakes in the animal, and slowly becomes aware of itself in man. Have you already heard about that? If you read in the book from Leon Denis, one of the Spiritist philosophers, he writes, I'm not sure now the name of this, in Portuguese is O Problema do Ser, do Destino e da Dor. Probably is the problem of being, of destiny, and of suffering. He writes, the intelligence snoozes in the plants, it dreams in the animals, it awakes, know itself, and becomes conscious in man. What he's saying, he's talking is about an evolution of a spirit, a soul, evolving in this planet where we live from the mineral, like Pythagoras said, from the stones. Stone is a mineral. Dreaming in the animals, that means, or in the plants, snoozing, whatever. Dreaming in the animals, that means awakening, and become really full aware of itself when it becomes conscious in the human beings. But Friedrich von Schelling says that this almost the same. The mind sleeps in the stone, dreams in the plant, awakens in the animal, and becomes conscious in man. When so many people tell the same, we should look carefully to understand why those people tell the same. Always a truth comes in many different ways to this world because it's true. On another side, we know if you look at science, there are plenty of research in nowadays in different kind of types of science. But in 2017, I was by chance reading a paper, and in the Tel Aviv University, Kite and others wrote about plants that emit informative airborne sounds under stress. What they said, they make experiments with tomatoes and with other plants, and they put those plants under stress, and then they recorded the sound that they would emit, and they proved that stressed plants show altered phenotypes, including changes in color, in smell, and shape. And moreover, they emit airborne sounds that can be recorded remotely, both in acoustic chambers and in greenhouses. What they are proving here, that these plants have some consciousness, that the spiritual monad, as says André Luiz Spirit through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier, develops itself, and when it comes to this stage as plants, they have some memory, they have some sensibility. There is kind of it's not really memory and sensitivity because it's a collectivity, but it's a development, it's a fundamental, it's the starting of developing memory and sensibility. In another sense, if we look at the minerals, we know that, for instance, many minerals are very well and are used to retain information. And what is information? Energy. Information and energy are almost the same thing. What we can talk about as energy and information being very much related. In the greater world, Francisco Cândido Xavier, or André Luiz, through the mediumship of Francisco Cândido Xavier, writes that the embryonic consciousness existing in the rock that rolls along with the river current is involved in a process of emergence. The trees, often standing tall for hundreds of years, enduring the gales of winter and lulled by the breezes of spring, are developing memory. The tigress, licking her newborn offspring, is learning the rudiments of love, and the ape, through its shrieks, is developing the faculty of speech. It's not beautiful? How can we see in this evolutionary path of the consciousness or of the spirit, coming from this embryonic consciousness that is in the rock till the tree, till the trees or the plants, till the animal, through the animals, till it comes to the human beings, and evolving more and more in other ways that we cannot even imagine. Another mystery. Not to forget that in this evolution of the consciousness or of the spirit, for the well-being and for our learning, we need to be in harmony of the universe. And as I said before, what is the biggest law of the universe? To be in harmony is love. And in the question 621, Kardec asks to the spirits of the codification, where is God's law written? And they answer, in the conscience. Now the conscience is our consciousness. That means is in ourselves. We have this seed of God in ourselves, where it sleeps, it's loss. Where love is within ourselves, is ready to be awakened when we are ready to. And we start being awake of this God's laws when we are in the animal realm, when we see an animal that lives in the forest, like a tiger, a tigress, or like an elephant, or like in the ocean, like a whale, how they treat their offsprings with this maternal love that we care for our children. This is the seed of motherly love being developed in the animals. There are many scientists that talk about consciousness and that try to understand how this consciousness manifests itself in our world. I admire this Sir Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff for their contribution in this field. I have the pleasure to meet Stuart Hameroff in a meeting in 2016 in Sweden. Unfortunately, didn't meet Roger Penrose, who won the Nobel Prize years ago. But they are the scientists who develop a theory about the consciousness in the universe. This theory is called OR. And in this theory, they say that the consciousness manifests itself through biological quantum process. And it could be deeply related to the operation of universal laws because it has an intrinsic role in the universe. I'm not saying that I believe and I'm aligned with them in all of their theories, because I understand that consciousness evolve through this intelligence, individual intelligence created by God in a form of a seed that is still sleeping in everyone, through the mineral in our earth, through the vegetal, through the animals, until it comes to us. And I also believe that this consciousness manifests itself in our thoughts and commands our brain and our body. Many people, and especially among scientists, think that is the reverse way. I'm not saying that Roger Penrose and Stuart Hameroff think in this reverse way, but many others do. But I found in this researching about how science look about beginning of the universe, and especially beginning of our consciousness and explaining consciousness, I got through papers from Gregory Matloff. Gregor Matloff is a physicist and astronomer, professor at the New York College of Technology. And it's the paper one of the papers I found written by him. It's called Stellar Consciousness. And he asked, can panpsychism emerge as an observational science? Panpsychism is the understanding that there is a consciousness in the universe. Why he comes to this question is he says that in 2011 he was invited to attend a symposium at the London headquarters of the British Interplanetary Society, the BIS. And at that day, they were discussing Stapleton's short masterwork, the 1937 Star Maker. It's the Star Maker is a widely cited work by scientists and engineers because of his scientific and technological predictions. Matloff is trained in, as we say, is as astronomer and physicist and professor. That means if one has looked to something, one usually starts in his own field of work. And he was, in my opinion, very courageous to look at in astronomy. And then in his paper, he makes the case to look for and concludes by the existence of this stellar consciousness. That means the existence of a consciousness field in the universe or a universal proto-consciousness. This understanding goes with he comes to this understanding, look at the stars and to the red shift of the stars. And what he says is that the red shift of the stars can tell us that those movement of the stars in comparison to one another. And he discovered then, by looking at that there was a Russian astronomer who discovered that red, less massive and cooler stars move slightly faster than their hotter and more massive blue counterparts. The red and blue shift from the stars is a way of looking at the stars in astronomy. Then Matloff analyzed possible explanations for this phenomenon, and concludes that the pressure of stellar radiation and stellar winds, that is very technical, could be explained, and would be insufficient to explain the anomaly in stellar velocity pointed out by Paranego, and that he researched in his through many analysis of stellar data. According to Matloff, and in his theory, his hypothesis is a hypothesis that is how can I put that? It contraposes itself to the dark matter hypothesis, because in our universe, you have heard probably about that, in our universe, the scientists say that there is a matter that is called dark matter that is invoked to explain a lot of phenomena and also the existence of the universe. And the dark matter is also invoked to explain the fact that the stars revolve around the centers of their galaxy, like our Milky Way, and that they revolve around the center of their galaxies faster than can be accounted by the observable matter. This is how the scientists explain the phenomena today. However, what Stapleton and Matlov propose is that stars can be considered to be conscious entities, maintaining their galactic position by their volition. And he writes a whole paper, mathematical, a full whole paper with mathematical, good mathematical view to prove that. And I find that amazing. And this paper was published in Edge Science. Edge Science is a journal published by the Society of Scientific Exploration. I'm a member of the society. And just to let you know, it's based in US. And many of our greater minds are members of the society, like Penrose, like Hameroff, like many others that I don't know, would remember the name. But you can look at SSE, or Society for Scientific Exploration. The Edge Sciences journal is free of charge, and they have a lot of information in their site. But okay, coming back to the Spiritism, and I should finish in 10-15 minutes, if I believe. Coming back to Spiritism, in evolution in 2 words, André Luiz says that the cosmic fluid is the divine plasma, the breath of the creator, or the neural force of the all-knowing. Is the primordial element. Constellations and suns, words and beings vibrate and exist like fish in the ocean. And as I said before, today we know that the quantum, that there is a quantum vacuum that is full of life, between quotes. It's not life, it's energy, or the quantum residual energy. And he also writes that in the galaxies, matter, space, and time are structured and interconnected and undergo constant renewal, offering enormous arenas for the progress of the spirit. Those books were written by Chico Xavier in the 50s, or in the 40s and 50s. And I want then to thank you for listening to me today. And before finishing, I would like to remind us that I probably dumped here a lot of information about science and try to bring some information about the Spiritist doctrine. But the important in our lives is to understand why we are being here in this planet, why we are well-beings, we are consciousness that evolve through many different that says constellations, that means elements and forms, to arrive in this stage, and will continue to evolve. But as spirit, as consciousness, we are always experience life in different ways, and that till we learn all God's divine laws and learn how to move in this universe without making disharmony, but trying to bring happiness where we walk and where we are. I don't think that in our times it's so easy to talk about that. I also think that these reflections and these thoughts that I put here are just the surface of a big ocean, and we need to deep in this ocean to understand where we are, where we live, and who we are. And this ocean is our soul, is within ourselves. I thank you for the patience of hearing me, and I thank you, Marcia, and those who invited me to be here. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Rejane. This is an amazing time. We've been together for about an hour, and you're right. It's just the beginning of the 1 millimeter in the surface of the amazing quantity of information in this vast scientific and spiritual literature. So I just want to say thank you. You are absolutely invited to continue with other talks in the near future. I'd love to have you with us again. And I want to ask at this point, Rejane, for us to do a prayer before we finish. And if I can, I just want everyone who's out there to perhaps take a moment to close our eyes. And I ask that our Heavenly Father, God, thank you. Thank you for this time together, this time that we spent listening to Rejane Planer, this time that we devoted to learning more about you, about our universe, and in that way, learning how to be better as spirits, as immortal souls that we are. As we conclude this talk, may we be committed to our own spiritual evolution by being with you, serving you in every way that we can. Help us see, dear Lord, your blessings around us in the simple, small things, those things that bring us joy each day. Show us, dear Father, all the ways that we're blessed and how we can bless each other each day. As we conclude our time together, fill us with peace. So be it. Dear Rejane, see you soon. Bye, everyone. Thanks.